The marble floor of Peterson and Associates gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights, reflecting the polished shoes of 33 nervous candidates. Maya Rodriguez clutched her worn portfolio tighter as she stepped into the waiting area, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for freedom. She had prepared for this moment for weeks. Every answer rehearsed, every potential question analyzed, every detail of her presentation perfected. But nothing could have prepared her for the sea of designer suits, expensive watches, and confident smiles that surrounded her in the sleek reception area of one of the city's most prestigious consulting firms. Maya smoothed down her navy blazer, her only blazer, purchased 3 years ago from a discount store when she'd graduated from community college. The fabric had held up well, though it bore the invisible weight of countless job interviews and rejections. Her white blouse was crisp and clean, pressed with care that morning in her small studio apartment. But it was her shoes that betrayed her. The black flats had served her faithfully through 2 years of night classes, weekend jobs, and endless walking through the city in search of opportunities. The leather had cracked along the left toe, a spiderweb of lines that she'd tried to disguise with black marker. The sole of the right shoe had separated slightly at the heel, creating a small gap that she'd reinforced with superglue and prayers. As Maya took her seat in the waiting area, she tucked her feet as far under the chair as possible. Around her, the other candidates exuded the kind of confidence that came with privilege. Pressed suits that cost more than Maya's monthly rent, leather briefcases that gleamed with newness, and shoes that had never known a day of real wear. "Did you see her shoes?" The whisper came from a blonde woman in a charcoal Armani suit, her voice just loud enough to carry. She sat 2 chairs away, speaking to her perfectly groomed companion. "Absolutely tragic," her friend replied, not bothering to lower her voice. "I mean, if you can't even dress properly for an interview, how can they expect you to represent clients?" More heads turned. Maya felt heat creep up her neck as other candidates began to notice, their eyes gravitating toward her feet despite her best efforts to hide them. A man in an expensive navy suit snorted softly, shaking his head as he returned to his phone. "This is Peterson and Associates," another candidate said, loud enough for Maya to hear clearly. "They're looking for people who understand image, who can move in elite circles. It's basic professional standards." Maya's cheeks burned, but she kept her chin up. She thought of her mother, working double shifts at the hospital to put food on the table. She thought of her younger brother, counting on her to prove that their family could rise above their circumstances. She thought of every professor who had told her she had potential, every boss who had praised her work ethic, every dream that had carried her through the darkest nights. "Maya Rodriguez?" A crisp voice cut through the whispers. Maya stood, her portfolio clutched against her chest like armor. Every eye in the room followed her as she walked toward the conference room, the slight squeak of her damaged shoe seeming to echo in the sudden silence. The conference room was intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a table that could seat 20, and at its head sat a man who commanded attention without saying a word. David Peterson, the CEO, was younger than Maya had expected. Perhaps in his early 40s, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. "Please, have a seat," he said, his voice neither warm nor cold, simply professional. Maya sat across from him, placing her portfolio on the polished table. She could feel his gaze taking her in, the careful attention she'd paid to her hair and makeup, the blazer that had been her armor through so many challenges, and yes, inevitably, her shoes. "I've reviewed your resume," Mr. Peterson began, opening a folder. "Community college, night school, multiple part-time jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. Impressive." "Thank you, sir." "Tell me about your experience at Martinez Construction." "I see you were there for 2 years while in school." Maya straightened, finding her voice. "I started in the filing department, but I noticed inefficiencies in how we tracked project costs. I developed a new system on my own time that reduced overhead by 15% in the first quarter alone." Mr. Peterson's eyebrow raised slightly. "You did this without being asked?" "Yes, sir." "I saw a problem that needed solving." Maya's confidence grew as she continued. At my current job at the community center, I've increased program participation by 40% by redesigning our outreach strategy and building partnerships with local schools. Interesting. And what makes you think you're qualified for a position at Peterson and Associates? Maya took a breath, thinking of all the whispers in the waiting room, all the dismissive glances, all the assumptions made about her worth based on her appearance. Because I understand what it means to work for something. I understand that success isn't handed to you. It's earned through persistence, creativity, and the ability to see solutions where others see only problems. She leaned forward slightly, her voice gaining strength. I may not have an Ivy League degree or a trust fund, but I have something that can't be bought: hunger. The drive to prove that talent and determination matter more than circumstances. And I have perspective. I know what it's like to serve clients who are struggling, who need someone who genuinely understands their challenges. Mr. Peterson was quiet for a long moment. His fingers steepled as he studied her. I notice you're wearing different shoes than the other candidates. Maya's heart sank, but she refused to look away. Yes, sir. These shoes have seen some wear. Yes, sir. They've carried me through 2 years of school, 3 jobs, and about 100 interviews. 100 interviews? 97 to be exact, including this one. Something shifted in Mr. Peterson's expression. Tell me about interview number 43. Maya blinked, surprised by the specific question. That was at Hartley Marketing. I'd prepared for weeks, but they ended the interview after 5 minutes when they learned I didn't have a car. The position required client visits, and they assumed I couldn't handle it without asking about alternatives. Did they ask about your problem-solving abilities? No, sir. They made an assumption based on my circumstances rather than my capabilities. Mr. Peterson nodded slowly. And interview number 78? Brennan Financial. They were impressed with my presentation, but the hiring manager made a comment about cultural fit. I realized later that meant I didn't look like everyone else in their office. But you kept trying. Yes, sir. Because I believe in what I can contribute. Mr. Peterson closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. Maya, I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. I grew up in public housing. My first suit came from Goodwill, and I wore shoes with holes in them to more interviews than I can count. Maya's eyes widened, but she remained silent. This company has been successful because we value substance over style, results over appearance. Some of our best consultants came from backgrounds that taught them resilience, creativity, and the ability to connect with clients from all walks of life. He stood up, extending his hand. Welcome to Peterson and Associates, Maya. I believe you'll find that your shoes have carried you exactly where you needed to be. As Maya shook his hand, her eyes filling with tears she was determined not to shed. She realized that sometimes the very thing that makes you different is exactly what makes you invaluable. Her torn shoes hadn't disqualified her. They had told the story of her journey, her persistence, and her refusal to give up. Walking back through the waiting room, past the candidates who had mocked her, Maya held her head high. Her shoes still squeaked slightly, but now it sounded like music, the soundtrack of a dream finally becoming reality.